Everybody, thank you for your willingness to come and spend some time with us. My name is Amar Khairi and I'm the moderator for tonight. This is a forum organized by the Malaysian Insider and it's called the Malaysian Identity and it's Part 5. And tonight we will discuss about the role of religion in forming identity. Okay, I'll try my best not to make this as boring as possible. Try to kind of be funny, I guess. Okay, together with me tonight we have Anas Daniel. He's the policy analyst of the Islamic Renaissance Front. And apparently, recently Anas has appeared on BFM to talk about the progressives and conservatives in the past. And he also talked about the recent Shia bannings in Malaysia. And also, next to Anas, we have Mr. Mahan Bala. He's the documentary filmmaker and photographer. And Mahan has some of his work screened in quite a number of international film festivals. And also, we have Wandi Yobi Yen, State Assemblyman for Damansara Utama. So, recently she's been very busy with lots of the DAP campaign in Sabah and Sarawak. And lots of other things that I don't normally. Yes. Role of religion. The keyword is religion and identity. And how do we relate religion and identity in Malaysia? So, one of the things that we're going to discuss about tonight is about pragmatism, has it eroded religious faith, significance of religion towards nation building, and the relevance of religion towards the harmony in Malaysia. Okay, I think we can begin with Anas. We'll talk about the concept of national identity, significance of religion, and the highlights of Malaysian experience with the recent religion and national identity.
Thank you, Amar. Fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, members of the floor. Firstly, on behalf of IRF, Islamic Renaissance Front, I would like to express our gratitude to KMI Forum for inviting us for tonight's forum. And for that, I am looking forward to have a lively discussion with all of you regarding the topic at hand, the role of religion in forming identity. Okay, as elaborated earlier by Amar, I will be touching on the concept of a national identity briefly, followed by brief snippets and discussions on how religion played a significant role in forming identity. I bring to the attention of how Malaysia has been experiencing religion being involved in the public sphere, which would eventually affect the forming of a national identity. And let's discuss further afterwards on what would be possible ways forward for the benefit of the Malaysian community in particular, and perhaps the entire world in general, when we're talking about how religion affects identity building. Okay. First and foremost, let's talk about the nation and national identity. Okay, the nation, modern nation states, have nowadays become a key principle of identification. So, for example, if you go overseas, if somebody asks you who you are, it is no longer the time saying I am an orang Jawa Peranakan keturunan daripada Tasik Malaya or something like that, tapi menetap di Malaya, something like that. People will say, okay, I'm Malaysian, because where you come from nowadays is a land which has established itself in a federation called Malaysia. The same goes for somebody coming from other lands. They have not associated themselves not merely from a small place where they were growing up, not from a town or a kampung, or perhaps even a bandar where they grew up, but they identify themselves to the nation, which apparently is a very modern construct. Back then, we didn't have nations when we had empires, Sriwijaya, for instance, or Kerajaan Kedah Tua, which unfortunately we will not know what's going to happen later. Okay? The remnants of it. So basically, this is basically the modern way on how, the present way on how people identify themselves. However, let's take note. This identification is made to operate through a shared set of collective memories. Now, how will that be? I'll explain a little bit. Nevertheless, this new national identity plays a very central role in providing a focus for our sense of commonality. We do need to take note that national identities are not monoliths. They are constructions. People construct what would be known as a national identity. We were not born fully realizing that we are Malaysians. And some other part and over the world, for instance, just seberang laut in Indonesia, they were not born saying like, I'm Indonesian. It is something instilled based on a way to reflect a multitude of collective experiences, memories, references, which were used to tie the people who are living within that confine. So, knowing that it is something which is created by you, we construct what we believe as a national identity. We need to realize that it evolves. When something evolves, there must be things which contribute to that evolution. There are factors which lead to that evolution. Here is where it comes that religion is also part of those factors which lead to the evolution of a national identity. Some people do try to discard religion altogether from the consciousness of the people in forming an identity of a nation. For instance, just 50, right now it's 2013, 2013 minus 1933 would just be like 80 years ago. Okay. Just like 80 years ago, there were people who tried to construct the idea of their nation based on superiority of their races. Yeah. And we know what happens 7 years down the road when that particular power tried to rule all over Europe, for instance. Okay. So that's one of the ways people try to only focus on saying that race is how a national identity should be formed upon. In other parts of the world, they try to set geographical constraints to determine what their national identity should look like. And some other parts of the world perhaps try to unite using languages, or perhaps in other parts of the world, even here, where we are in Southeast Asia, we try to use history, a common ancestry, a common history shared by the people in this region to develop a national identity. In other words, religion is but one factor among others constitutive of national identities. What I can say is, none of these factors can work in silence. You cannot build a national identity mainly on race. You cannot build a national identity mainly on religion. You cannot build a national identity based on any other single factor. It is always a situation where an interaction of all these elements which would lead to the forming of a national identity. Okay, but yeah, for tonight, we are going to talk about how religion plays a role in forming a national identity. Okay, enough talking about national identity as a whole. Let's focus on religion. Alright. When we talk about religion, there are unique features which would make religion be a marker of identity. Pretty unique. It's pretty different with something which is not held by, if you use race, for instance, or language. And what are these 2 points which I would like to talk about? These unique features coming from religion. First, religious authority. There is no such thing as a race authority. There is no such thing as the, what we say, like, the House Melayu, for instance. The Malay, like within the race of the Malays, and position equivalent of a pope within a race. And same goes for other races. But within religion, there are authorities within religion. In Christianity, Catholicism, we have Pope as the Grand Pontiff, overseer of how the religion of Christianity is like. In other denominations of Christianity, of course, there are other religious authorities. And in Islam, we mainly rely on muftis. Another side of the coin is we have all these, the judges of the Sharia courts, which are also considered as religious authorities. And another factor is the religious dogma itself. We hardly feel any dogma of a race or of a language. As a matter of fact, languages, as we know, it keeps changing. Like the grammatical rules of Bahasa Melayu, which I learned like 15 years ago back in school, is very different from what I see right now is being displayed on billboards. So yeah, you can just ignore language dogmas. It does not exist. But in religion, in most religion, if not all religion, there is a concept of a religious dogma where these items are non-negotiable. At one side, we see there are religious believers who say that abortion is forbidden and in no way you can legalize it. At one side, we see there are religious believers who believe that there is no room for same-sex relationships. There are some religious believers who believe that there is no room for interfaith relationships. For them, these items are non-negotiable, confined within the dogma of each of the religion that they prescribe. And these two factors which I have mentioned just now are very unique, are very particular only for religion. So, beyond these two special constraints within religion, religion generally is pretty much very neutral. However, when you ally religion to political activism, or perhaps any form of activism, religious affiliations can be a powerful marker of identity, which can bring you to do good things. Yet at the same time, it can be a potential source of conflict. Let's take a look at an example. In plenty of democratic societies, religious views do play an active role in shaping public policy. When talking about abortion, for instance, talking about gay rights, talking about interfaith relationship, talking about the, how do you say it, the display of religious adornments in public sphere. But plenty of countries in Europe, in America, as you can see right now, is starting to emerge in the Arab Spring countries, even in Malaysia, our neighbor Indonesia. We do see that these discourses are alive, that religious views are being aired in the public for discussion. At the same time, we ought to realize, we do realize as a matter of fact, that religions run the risk of being instrumentalized for whatever purpose. It has been used to rally people against certain methods. Some of these can be quite undesirable in some part, where religious differences lead to undesirable consequences, notwithstanding the fact that actually it's not inherently incompatible with democracy. So these are the challenges that we have to realize when we are talking about religion. Religion itself is basically neutral. It is only when how you associate your religion to pursue a certain agenda that you believe in. That is where you see religion can either be a force of good, as pretty much done by a lot of like religion Democrats, or I would consider like liberation theologians, in order usable, capitalizing on religion to promote ideas such as social justice, equality, pluralism. Yet at the same time, the other side of the coin is that you can use religion to pursue anti-democratic agendas, where you use religion to justify suppression towards others, to justify your infinite ability to rule over a certain country endlessly, and things like that. So, with that in mind, let's have a look at what we see in Malaysia. Okay, Malaysia, Islamization has been a state-sanctioned effort. Pretty much, we can see this style of Islamization rising up during the 1980s. Some people attribute it with the entry of Anwar Ibrahim into UMNO and the government. I will not elaborate or comment on that, but there are some belief that actually led the spark of Islamization happening in Malaysia. But that's all speculation. But what is the fact is that the Islamization which we are witnessing in this country started mainly during the 1980s. We see that an ever-growing effort to influence public policy with Islam has been carried out with mixed results. And we need to take note that this Islamization, while it is state-sanctioned, it was not only pushed by the state. There was support from plenty of non-governmental organizations and civil societies within the Malay Muslim community, which wanted to see that the public policy of this country have more influence with Islam. That is something that we actually need to acknowledge. Back then in the 1980s, there was a demand. And as a matter of fact, I would admit, I would point out that the demand is still strong, that we see an Islamization taking place in this country, where whatever is in the public sphere can cater to what is perceived as Islam by a majority of the Muslims here in this country. Why do I say this? Let's have a look, for example, within the economic sector. The emergences and the growth of the Islamic banking and finance sector, it has been growing quite rapidly ever since the 1980s. Nowadays, we even see the last World Islamic Economic Forum was even held in London. So, this demand is there. They want to see Muslims in general in Malaysia, or in particular Malaysia, and in general perhaps all over the world. We Muslims, there is a part of us which would like to see that there is a growing sector within the economy that can be Sharia compliant. And we are demanding that. And this demand definitely in ways would affect public policy. Because there are, of course, interventions which need to come up from the government, where the infrastructure needs to be built. Also, we see the rising emergences of Islamic private schools and higher education institutions. In particular Malaysia, there is this demand coming from the Malaysian community, in particular the Muslims. Also, we see halal certification. It's a big business. I know quite a few non-Muslims, as a matter of fact, join the bandwagon, providing halal certified goods and services, because there is such demand. And of course, all this growth definitely would need, in many ways, support from the government in terms of policies. These policies, when we see there is such growth for demands of that policy, in ways we can associate it back that within these people, their identity, such association with religion is very strong. And we cannot simply detect it just because it's not in line with what we want. There is need for us to acknowledge that. As a matter of fact, I would add, this demand in the business sector, the economy has in quite some ways been beneficial. It provides job opportunities. When you specifically open like all these niche markets, how niche markets have been providing economic growth, which is definitely something good. But however, our greatest concern is not on the economic sector, where how such demand of Islamization is affected. But the biggest problem which we are facing right now due to this Islamization is growing fanaticism. And this is something which is of a huge concern, not only for non-Muslims, but even Muslims themselves. The growth of prominence of right-wing Islamists. I'm pretty sure you all by now are very familiar with Ibrahim Ali, the head of Perkasa. But is he the only one? No. As a matter of fact, I would dare say that Perkasa's influence is very minimal. But how well are we aware of an organization called Ikatan Muslimin Malaysia, short form ISMA, compared to Perkasa, which are mainly which their members mainly come from UMNO businessmen or UMNO groups and hooligans. ISMA has a very broad base of Malays who associate themselves very strongly with their religion, albeit in a very right-wing manner. And it comes from a wide spectrum, from teachers, to people high up in the civil service of the country, highly educated people. But they do believe that religion is to be associated strongly with their race. There are no two ways about it. It has become a dogma for them that Melayu and Islam are to be associated and cannot be separated. And this association must roll over the country. Also, what do we see? The growing conditions which we are facing are excessive moral policing. Let's face the fact, any religion would in some way have this moral consciousness, which when they see something which is not following their moral conscience, would at the very least chide these people, and or at the very least disagree with these people. The same is happening in Islam. However, excessive moral policy, where in conducting their moral policy, they are breaching people's trust. They spy on people, they use excessive force, entering into people's house, beating people up when they are being held in custody, interrogated in a very impolite manner. Now this has in many ways brought shame to religion, all religions as a matter of fact, because in doing so, in trying to uphold morality, which is basically a virtue in their religion, they have unfortunately conducted many more misconducts in violating other teachings of religion. But still, we cannot deny the fact that their intention in doing this come from strong association of religion towards their identity. And we need to take note of this. And another example which I would like to share, which we are seeing right now is, for example, which in particular is of huge concern for IRF itself, is intra-Islam intolerance, intra-religion intolerance. For instance, when we have public announcements by ministers saying that our fellow Shiite followers of Islam are basically conducting a criminal act. It's a crime to subscribe to being Shiite. When for the last 1,200 years, at least, Shiites have been considered part of Islam, and in fact, the entire Muslim world do acknowledge Shiites as part of Islam. But this intra-Islam intolerance taking place in Malaysia is something which is very worrying. Even though they associate it strongly with their identity, religious identity, there are instances which, unfortunately, I would say it's a wrong side. That's what we are facing. I give you another example. On intra-faith marriages. Intra-faith, sorry, wrong word. Also, when we're talking about interfaith marriages, most Muslims in Malaysia believe that is a Muslim can not marry a Christian, for instance. Well, in fact, we actually can. And that is stated in our own religion. But dogma-wise in Malaysia, it has turned into something else differently. But still, they keep on associating these ideas with trying to be religious as possible, because they believe religion is a part of their identity that they cannot separate. So, I'm afraid I might have been talking a bit too long. So, I'll just sum up a bit of what important aspects that we need to do to move forward from these situations of such strong identity issues, especially coming to religion. I see the most important part is to be able to mutually respect other people, regardless of their religion, regardless of their race, regardless of what identity they subscribe to. But you need to have such mutual respect, and for you to actually have this, what you need to start and keep on doing is to have dialogue. The dialogue circuit in Malaysia, where we are really honest with one another, where we do not hold prejudices with one another, actually is very limited. Prejudices, unfortunately, run deep in this country. But that is at least the first step that we need to take before we can start going even further to build mutual respect, to build commitment, to secure the rights of the most disadvantaged parts of society, to talk about even building partnerships with people who do not have the same belief that you do, people who do not share your same identity. Still, the very first step that we need to do is to have a dialogue. And for that, on behalf of IRF, I would like to highlight one of our most successful projects was our partnership with Thomas Fabian in promoting Project Dialogue, where we try to promote interfaith dialogue here in Malaysia. Perhaps later I can, if you would like to know more on Project Dialogue, you can contact us in IRF. I guess that's how I will end my supposedly 20-minute speech. Thank you again for your attention. Any back.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Wow, we travel across Southeast Asia, then we go to Europe, and then we go back to Malaysia and go really, really deep to regions. So I could basically spend more on the kind of vagaries of perception we have in Malaysia when it comes to Malay Muslims, especially because they don't know to define the line kind of blurry. Anyway, yeah, there has been quite a number of interfaith dialogues, right? The dialogues happening on KL where leaders from different religions, they come together and talk about it, and I think that could be another way for us to understand and find similarities that we have between regions. And I think that's something that we should look at in the next 5 to 10 years. Alright, next we have Mahan Bala. It's good to see you here, Mahan.
Okay, hi Amma.
Alright, Mahan will talk about the role of religion, how the role of religion varies across different communities, so we go all the way to the grassroots, and he will talk about the dominance of major religion over the minor ones. Things that we call agama lain-lain. Yeah. And he will also share with us his personal approach towards the concept of missionality. Over to you.
Right, thanks Amma. Very happy to be here. So thank you very much to everyone for taking the time to be here. I'm very glad that my fellow panelists, Anas, addressed all those questions, especially with Islam and state governance and all that, because that's not really my field of expertise. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about three things, three aspects. But before we do that, let's just go back to the question that we have for the forum today. And the question is basically, how does religion play a role in developing Malaysian identity, right? I would like to change that question a little bit. Let's not externalize things, let's bring it closer to us. Ask yourselves, how does your religion affect or influence your Malaysian identity? Alright? So think about that, because we will come back to that question right after we go through all the other points, right? So the first point that I'd like to talk about is actually how religion plays a role in influencing identities in different areas, in different communities in Malaysia. Because what I find from going to all these forums, interfaith dialogues and all that, right? I think a lot of people will disagree with what I'm going to say, but disagree all they want. And I think it's good to disagree. What I find with a lot of interfaith dialogues is that we are too KL-centric. We sit here in KL, all our friends, we work in KL, family, everybody in KL, and then we assume, right, that the whole of Malaysia functions the same way as KL people do. But that's not the case at all. Every state in Malaysia functions very, very differently. So I'm going to talk about, a lot of things that I'm going to talk about is based on my personal experiences in going across the country. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to KL Central, we're going to take the overnight train to Kota Baru. Actually walk up Baru station. So it's an overnight train, and when you wake up, you'll be greeted by this limestone caves, really beautiful. How many of y'all have ever been there? Anyone? No one? Nobody from Kelantan?
No, I honestly did by accident and I regretted it.
You went there by accident?
Yeah, because I spent almost 9 hours. Yeah, the trip takes me 9 hours. And
yeah, it's about that. Okay. So, you arrive in Kelantan, right? This is a state that we all have an idea of what Kelantan is, you know. We all have some sort of stories of like, wow, this actually when you go to Kelantan, like this cannot, like that cannot, wow, horrible place, like, you know, Islamic law, this, that. But a lot of us, we've never been there. We just assume. We sit in front of our computers, we read articles, and we just assume all these places like that, like, yeah, we laugh among ourselves. But when I went there, I just felt